Paving mitts are constructed all in the round, very few ends to weave in, and it's a really fun process. You'll cast on at the cuff edge and go around and around the wrist. When you reach the point where you'd add a thumb gusset on a mitten, and that's one of the nice things about these Tunisian crochet mitts in the round, they actually have a gusset to allow for that thumb width. You start doing paired increases spaced evenly around a center line. So here's your first pair, here's your second pair, here's, let's see, the third pair, and the fourth. After you finish increasing the thumb gusset, you continue on around till you get to the join between the thumb and the hand. You cast on 4 stitches in a very simple E-cast on, and continue going around the hand until you end off. There's a decrease in here to help it fit a little better, and you put a decorative crab stitch edging on it. You then pick up where you left off with the thumb, go around the thumb. Again, there's another decrease to help it fit your thumb a little better. Add the decorative crab stitch edging, and finally finish up with a crab stitch edging at the wrist. And you have completed wonderful mitts. One friend worked these up in 3 hours per mitt, so this is a weekend project if ever there were one. Let's start with the cast on. All the cast on for Tunisian crochet is a simple slip stitch crochet chain. Simply make your slip stitch around your hook, and now, and I find it convenient when crocheting, and especially with Tunisian crochet, to hold my yarn in my left hand and my hook. Oh, notice it's a special hook with 2 ends. It's a double hooked hook, and that is what lets you do Tunisian crochet in the round. Anyway, you have your slip stitch on your hook. Now you pick up a loop with the hook and you do a very simple slip stitch chain. Pick up a loop, pull it through. Pick up a loop, pull it through. I'm not going to cast on as many stitches here as I would for the actual mitt pattern. We're going to do a kind of a mini sample to show you some of the skills you'll need to make those mitts. Okay, I've got enough of a chain that I could start to Tunisian crochet in the round, which is the first skill that you'll need. We're going to do a Tunisian simple stitch in the round, and to start out with that first cast on row, all you have to do is slip the hook into the very first chain. Make sure you work with your working yarn and not that short tail, and pull a loop up through. Now here's the difference. Instead of pulling the next loop through this loop, we're going to go to the next loop on the chain and pull a loop through. Keep working your way around the chain, pulling one loop after another. See, we're accumulating them on the hook. And here in short order, we're going to get to a point where it's difficult to add more loops to the hook because we can't make our way clear around that circle. That's where the fun comes in. I think this will be about the last stitch I do. At this point, I get to start playing with my other color. You see, my working yarn is off to the left. My new color is here on the right. Well, I'm going to turn my whole project over because now I'm going to work with this end of the hook. I'm starting back where that tail end is, see? And I'm just going to simply pull a loop through that first stitch that was on my hook. Now for the very first one, make sure you don't pull the tail all the way back through. You can leave it just hang. You'll now pull a loop through the purple and then through the next white. Pull through the purple and the next white. Pull through the purple and the next white. The white strand is called the leading yarn, and the purple strand is called the trailing yarn. Look what happens when I get to the point where I've eaten up most of my white loops. I don't want to keep going. Now I don't have much to hold on to, so I'm going to turn the whole contraption back around and work with the original hook. And I pick up that white yarn again, and I keep working my way around the circle as I was before, picking up a loop in every chain stitch. I go on around, and I'm going to stop right before the beginning of the row just so we can talk about that separately. But now I've made my way all the way around, and it's time to flip my work again, working with the other end of the hook and the working end of the trailing yarn, the purple yarn. I go back to through the purple, through the white. Put one loop over the hook and pull it through the next two. One is purple and one is white. And on I go, right up till the last couple of stitches. Doesn't look like a whole lot yet, but it will in just a moment. I'm going to turn back around because it's time to work with the white again. And now you see I've worked right up to the end of my circle. Well, that's my first round. So now it's time to do the second round, and that is even easier because now I'm just going to slip my hook in front of this little leg that is left from the loop that I pulled up before. Hook through the front leg, and I pull a loop through that. Leave it on the hook, go to the next one. Hook through the leg, pull a loop through. Go on to the next one. Hook through the leg, pull it on through, and so on. You can squish these together if you want to get your way a little bit further around the circle. And I do that sometimes because I like to keep going as long as I can. But that's about as far as I can go, so back again, turn around. This is my tail end. I don't want to work with that. I want to pick up my working yarn. And as before, for the trailing yarn, I put a loop over the hook and pull through two loops, a purple and a white. Over the hook, through two loops, and on I go. And we're just going to keep doing this until we have completed as many rounds as the pattern had stated. I flip back around and keep working forward with the leading yarn, the white yarn. And getting about as far as I can go, so I flip back, pick up the working yarn, and again with the trailing yarn I put the yarn over the hook and come back through two loops, a purple and a white. The trailing yarn pulls through two. And you're eating up those loops that were on your hook. Ooh, I'm going to get wild here and go clear to the last loop. And then I turn around and you can see that I'm almost finished with my second round. Let me go ahead and finish that. If I can find the working yarn here. Here it is. And I will work my way there. Again, under the leg and pull a loop through. I leave that loop on the hook. The leading yarn leaves the loop on the hook. Oops. And here you can see I've started that second full, or finished that second full round with white. I'll come around with the trailing yarn here in a moment to really finish that second round. But I want to work my way on a little bit. That's probably enough. Look at this. I'm starting to get some twists in that yarn, but if I'm careful about which way I flip my project, I can untwist it as I go and it won't get too confusing. Here, notice I'm snugging up the working yarn for that trailing yarn. This loop can get a little distorted as you work, so just snug it up again before you keep going. And again, trailing yarn goes through two, trailing through two. And work my way back around. We'll keep doing this until we build up a little bit of a tube, but already you can start to see that paving mitt pattern start to show up. Let's pause while I work a little bit further ahead. I've now worked enough Tunisian crochet in the round that you can see how it's starting to look. You can clearly see the paving pattern that is created by using 2 colors of yarn. What I've done here is I've marked the first line of loops that correspond with that very first stitch I picked up in the cast on. That's so that you can see very clearly that I'm increasing evenly on either side of that central line of stitches. Now the increase I work in the paving mitts is a very simple increase. There are several other methods of increasing in Tunisian crochet, but for the purposes of our project we're simply going to put the hook between the leg that I've just lifted a loop up through and the next leg, put it under the trailing yarn, and simply pull up a loop. See, that makes a bit of a hole? Make sure that you keep this loop quite loose compared to the other loops, and that will minimize the appearance of that hole in your finished product. You'll have a little bit, but consider it a design feature more than a problem. You'll now pick up a loop just as normal in the next leg, and because we're doing a paired increase that is evenly spaced around this central leg, we're going to do another increase right following it. Again, straight through the fabric, picking up a loose loop underneath that trailing yarn, and now we move on and pick up in the next leg and the next, just as we normally would for Tunisian simple stitch in the round, and continue on.